What's up, everybody? We are back with some NFL DFS picks and lineup advice for DraftKings and FanDuel, this time for the season opening single game showdown slate on Thursday Night Football, the Philadelphia Eagles and the Dallas Cowboys. Welcome. In this video, we will first talk about the injuries that impact the slate and the personnel changes that happened over the offseason in case you haven't been following football for the last couple of months. Then we'll talk about the core plays and low risk picks for your DFS lineups. And then we'll transition, of course, and we'll talk about the strategies and tips and selections to help you win the biggest prizes that DraftKings and FanDuel have to offer tonight in the high risk contest and the biggest GPPs and tournaments on each slate. Now, even if you're not a DFS player, if you're betting parlays or betting props or season long fantasy football or pick'em sites, whatever it is, you can still get some usage out of this video. I'm Brian Jester, co-founder here at Occupy Fantasy, single game, $1 million winner. And for those of you who are returning viewers, welcome back. It's good to see you as always. And for those of you who are new, you may be asking, yeah, I clicked this video, but why should I listen to this random guy on YouTube? Well, as I just said, I've won $1 million in a single day playing Showdown DFS on DraftKings. And despite that being a couple of years ago, a lot of the same strategies still apply. And using those strategies that we discovered and that we talk about in these videos, plus our tools at occupyfantasy.com, has helped me and our viewers win countless tournaments over the past few seasons in showdown contests. Now, just really quickly before we get into the picks and all the info for this slate, the schedule for the rest of the season and for this week in particular, we will have a showdown preview video for every Thursday night game and every Monday night game. And we listen to you, the viewers, the commenters. Last year, you guys wanted a Sunday Night Football video. So starting this year, starting this week, probably Chuck, who writes our Sunday Night Daily Plug at Occupy Fantasy, he will do a live stream on Sunday afternoons ahead of the Sunday Night Football game to answer your questions about the Sunday Night Showdown slate. Our NFL manager, Chris, he'll be back once again every Friday night breaking down the main slate. So all the games on Sunday afternoon, Chris will have a rundown for those games as well. Plus any island or random games we get throughout the season, like we do in week one. Tomorrow, Friday, we'll have a video for that as well. So yes, I will have a video for tomorrow's Chiefs and Chargers game in Brazil. So all that said, if you like these videos and you don't want to miss them, make sure you're subscribed to the channel here on YouTube. It is free to do so, helps us out, but also lets you know whenever these videos go live. All right, you know what? Before we get into the picks, we have to talk about one more thing, and it's FanDuel. They completely changed their single game format this season to really mimic DraftKings. So if you remember last year, if you've been playing Showdown for a while on FanDuel, it was 5 players in your roster. It was no salary multiplier at MVP. Both of those have changed. We now have 6 roster spots, and it costs more to roster someone at your MVP spot. So just for instance, Saquon Barkley, it will cost you $21,600 to play him at MVP, where he's just $14,400 in the flex. Last year, he would have been the same price at MVP. So now, while the scoring has stayed the same for FanDuel, we now have guys priced all the way down at $1,000. If you remember last year, the minimum price was $5,000. We only had 5 guys. So this really changes things. Yes, it's going to look a lot like DraftKings, but because of the scoring and still because of the salary differences, it will be a difference if you're playing on DraftKings and FanDuel, and it will definitely be a difference than if you played on FanDuel last year. So stick around. We'll certainly get you ready for that. All right, let's talk about tonight now. Eagles and the Cowboys. And both teams are pretty healthy going into week one, which is always nice. The one injury that could impact the game is Trayvon Diggs, cornerback for Dallas. He's returning from injury, and it sounds like he'll be on a play count of some sort. So if he's not out there for every snap, or if he's not 100%, that could certainly help the Philadelphia passing game. So just something to keep in the back of your mind as you're building lineups. And let's talk about personnel changes, and we'll start on Philadelphia's side. And it must be nice to be an Eagles fan or be a part of the Eagles organization because you win the Super Bowl and you have no newsworthy items coming into the season. No personnel changes really to speak of. All the same guys are pretty much in effect for your starting lineup, especially on offense for where it matters for us here in DFS. Just some minor role players back into the roster guys that are different. And again, those do matter in Showdown, of course. If you remember last year, the running back 2 was Kenny Gainwell. Didn't get a ton of work. No running back got really any work behind Saquon Barkley. Kenny Gainwell's gone. He's off to Pittsburgh. So that means Will Shipley is likely going to be the running back 2 tonight for Philly, and he's looked good in touches he's got, the limited touches he has got in the NFL. And let's just find him here. Shipley, he is $2,000, so extremely cheap. If somehow they split up the work any at all, he could have some value. They also signed A.J. Dillon in the offseason. He'll probably be the running back 3. It would be shocking to see him get really any touches tonight, but he is in the mix as well. But Will Shipley is the guy that we're most concerned about behind Saquon Barkley. And they also added a wide receiver 4 in John Mechie. If you remember from the Texans, they traded for him just a couple of weeks ago. Jahan Dotson's still likely going to be the wide receiver 3, especially at this point early in the season. But John Mechie could see the field tonight as well, someone to keep in mind if you're building a bunch of lineups for tonight. On Dallas's side, that's where we've seen the biggest differences in terms of personnel. First of all, they've added George Pickens over from Pittsburgh to be their wide receiver 2. Big play threat. He'll be a huge upgrade over their wide receiver 2 spot from last year, and it'll drastically change how the targets are distributed here in Dallas. Running back is completely different. No longer do we have Rico Dowdle. No longer do we have Ezekiel Elliott. No longer do we have Deuce Vaughn. We have 3 new guys, 3 new faces in the mix for Dallas at running back. It's Javonte Williams, formerly of the Broncos. It is Miles Sanders, formerly of the Eagles, but formerly of a couple other teams as well. Miles Sanders is 4K. And then rookie Jaden Blue out of Texas, who some people were excited about, especially his pass catching ability. If you look at any prospect report, any scouting report, you look at his stats from last year, he is a plus pass catcher. 42 catches last year at Texas, sub 4.4 speed. So the type of guy that they can use out in space, kind of like Kevontae Turpin a little bit, but a much better running back. And it's unclear how much he'll play tonight. And we'll talk about Javonte Williams here in a second. But you know what? Let's talk about him now because it is important. And if you look at betting markets, you look at most fantasy sites projecting this backfield, certainly it has Javonte Williams leading the way. But no one is willing to take a stand on what they expect out of this backfield. But I think if we read through the tea leaves, between the lines, this coaching staff wants to use Javonte Williams a ton, at least early on. He's the only running back that didn't play in preseason. He was healthy. Typically, when guys are held out of preseason, like Dak, like CeeDee Lamb, they are a core part of the starting unit. Javonte Williams didn't play in the preseason. Miles Sanders did. Jaden Blue did. So that leads us to believe, one, there, just by what they've been telling us, how they use players, Javonte Williams is going to be the lead back. Then comments came out this week from head coach Brian Schottenheimer that they think Javonte Williams can handle the load of a lead back. All has been doing and saying all the right things behind the scenes. So I think we have to assume that Javonte Williams probably gets more work than what betting markets and most sites expect. However, it's not a surprise. Just because he projects a little better, he's going to be extremely popular at his price tag. Any starting running back or running back that's going to get the majority of the touches is going to be popular at 5,400 on DraftKings. We look at him on FanDuel. He is 6,600, which is more than affordable in this new FanDuel pricing system. And it's hard to know how they're going to mix up touches behind it. What we think and what I think is that Miles Sanders is more of a relief back for Javonte Williams, maybe spells a series here or there, where Jaden Blue is the type of guy that's not going to play a ton, but they're going to get him in the game for design touches out of the backfield, sweeps, things like that. And because of that, Jaden Blue likely has more value, more manufactured touches than Miles Sanders. But again, we're all guessing at this point. It's before week 1, and we don't have any concrete data. I'm going to say this a lot throughout the season. We try to predict the future, but we're going to be wrong a decent amount of times. The idea is that when we're right and we're playing a game with incomplete information, when we are right and the field is not, we're going to win big money. And that's the plan here in these videos and our content at OccupyFantasy.com. So all this is say, Javonte Williams lead back, Jaden Blue mixing in, Miles Sanders probably the third back. Not going to factor much in tonight. And I think that's it as far as personnel changes go. So let's move on and let's talk about low-risk contests, 50-50s, double-ups, head-to-heads. These are DFS contests where you just have to beat half the field to double your money. You may refer to them as cash games. Basically, what we do, our philosophy at Occupy Fantasy, is you try to lock up all the scoring first and foremost. So you play both quarterbacks, both starting running backs, and in that sense, if a touchdown is scored in the game, you likely have some piece of it. And then you fill in the remaining roster spots with kickers, defenses, and or any value plays. So if we start that with DraftKings, and we try to build a low-risk lineup with a core of Jalen Hurts, who we'll leave at the captain spot, projects a little bit better than Saquon Barkley, and he's cheaper, so we'll just take the salary savings and put him at captain. Saquon Barkley, one of the best running backs in the league. We have Dak Prescott at 9K, and then we have the aforementioned Javonte Williams at 5,400. This should, in theory, lock up all the scoring for us. That leaves $39.50 left per player. Yes, pricing is soft, but if you look below the kickers and defenses, below Cowboys, even below Jake Elliott, honestly, not many guys are guaranteed to see touches. So I think we'll see a decent amount of ownership on all these guys down here that may score a point, may score a couple of points. And that's more of a high risk section strategy and something to think about, a lineup construction tip. But here we go, 39.50. We pretty much know, and while we do have the addition of George Pickens, we have the addition of Jaden Blue, we know that Kevontae Turpin, when he's been on the field for the Cowboys, they manufacture touches for him. Jet sweeps, screens, short passes, something to get the ball in his hands to try to get some big plays, get some chunk plays. And as a result, Turpin actually has a pretty good track record, at least historically, of scoring fantasy points, which may not sound like a high bar when you consider what we're trying to do here. But if he scores 2-3 points at $2,800 and allows us to fit in these other guys, that's all we need in a low-risk contest. Not to mention he has the upside for much more. He returns kicks, so he also has the outside chance of a kick or punt return touchdown. So let's put Kevontae Turpin in as the best value. He'll be popular in this range. That leaves $5,100 left per player. Now we can fit Jaden Blue, probably too pricey for low-risk contests. We can fit Eagles defense as 8.5-point favorites. They're probably the best option here. Brandon Aubrey, Jake Elliott. You can fit in this last spot with the mid-range option of your choosing. And this is easily the best way to play low-risk contests tonight. Now, historically, during this time of the video in previous seasons, we will say, we try to lock up all the scoring, but on FanDuel, it's extremely tough to do. But now in 2025, with this new system set up for single game contests, it's actually pretty similar to DraftKings. So what we'll try to do here, we'll play Jalen Hurts again because he's cheaper than Barkley. We'll take that price savings at the captain's or at the MVP spot. Saquon Barkley, Dak Prescott, and Javonte Williams 6,600. That leaves $49.50 left per player. Now what we could do here is the one difference was a couple differences, right? But this goes to show the difference in playing both sites. Remember, Jaden Blue is $5K on DraftKings. He's only $2,400 here. Now it comes down to your projection, your feelings on who gets more guaranteed touches between Jaden Blue and Kevontae Turpin. And it's close. I think I would lean Jaden Blue on FanDuel, especially with the $400 savings. That will allow us to get up to Dallas Goedert. If you don't want to play Jaden Blue and you prefer Kevontae Turpin, you could play Brandon Aubrey, Jake Elliott, Dallas Cowboys, probably one of Aubrey or Elliott, and you'll leave some salary on the table. The difference is, remember historically, FanDuel really didn't want to leave salary on the table because of some of the pricing gaps and how soft some of the pricing is. Don't be afraid, even in low-risk contests, to leave $1,000 on the table just because there are some guys in the way the pricing tiers are set up that you can't actually fill the full salary cap. So $7,500, this would leave $100 left on the table. But let's just say you wanted to go Kevontae Turpin. You really like Kevontae Turpin over Jaden Blue. Then you would play Brandon Aubrey or Jake Elliott. That leaves $1,300 left over, and that is more than acceptable given this new scoring system, this new pricing system on FanDuel for single game contests. All right, let's see here. Yeah, that'll do it for low risk contests. Just a reminder, this video is brought to you by the tools at OccupyFantasy.com. So our Occupy model is already up and running along with projected ownership, as is our lineup builder. For those who don't know, our Occupy model is our proprietary model. We look at tons and tons of metrics. They're fed into this model, and it spits out our proprietary metric. It ranks every player on every slate based on our unique metric called the OF index, and it's different than every site in the industry, every projection set in the industry, and it's built for high-risk contests. Helps you find the best ceiling players on every single slate. That's up and running for the slate, along with projected ownership, which we have for every single primetime, island, and main slate NFL contest. Our lineup builder allows you to build up to 300 lineups automatically using our custom rules. Also allows you to build lineups by hand in our single build mode with different criteria check marks that are checked off when you meet them in your lineup. So if you're hand building just one lineup, you can see the best way to build depending on the contest you're playing in. And our daily plug, which our writers do a fantastic job of, those are published every afternoon of a showdown or a primetime slate. So Thursday, Sunday, Monday, and any island games. And those give rankings for every contest type, overall slate notes, more notes than I can go into detail in these videos, and lineup construction tips for every single type of contest for DraftKings and FanDuel. Invaluable information, a complete roadmap to the slate, so make sure you go check that out after this. In addition, speaking of things to check out after this video, I did a video last year here on this channel. I'll link it. You'll see at the top, at the beginning of the video, at the end of the video, as well as the description. It's how to build showdown lineups using our tools. Even if you're not a member, the process I use on how to build profitable NFL showdown lineups it takes about an hour to watch, and it'll get you in the right mindset for building lineups for tonight's game. So watch that after this video. All right, now On to high risk contest, but first, the first water sip break of the season. Oh yeah, that hits differently. First video of the season. Longtime members clamoring for the water break. Don't worry, I need it badly. Every single video. And longtime members will be shocked to know that we still do not have a sponsor for the water break segment. Don't worry, we're working hard on it behind the scenes to get a sponsor. In the meantime, unsponsored water breaks every single time here on the Showdown videos. All right, let's move on to high risk contests. These are leagues, GPPs, satellites, any contest where it's exponential payouts. You have to beat a lot of people to win a lot. So let's think about some strategies for tonight's game, given everything that we know. And just some general advice. Now is the time to take shots on unknown situations or situations where people feel too confident on what happened last year. It's week one. We had a long offseason, new coaching staffs, new ideas, new players. Things can change. So just because we think we know what's going to happen doesn't necessarily mean that's going to happen. So uncertain situations, something like the running back 2 situation for Philly. Do we really think Will Shipley is going to get a lot of touches tonight? No. But what if they want to limit Saquon's workload early in the season? Save him throughout the entire year. Is it likely? No. Is it possible? Yeah, so maybe that's something we take a shot on. Now, as we look at the odds for tonight's game, this is just our free betting odds at OccupyFantasy.com. You can get this for the 4 main sports. But you see Philadelphia, 8.5-point favorites tonight across the board. And generally, you would think that with that spread in showdown contests, that typically means that we would see Philadelphia-heavy lineups by the field. So in your contest, you open up the contest page, and you see a bunch of lineups that have 4 Philadelphia players, 5 Philadelphia players. But that's not the case because Philadelphia has such a tight usage tree. It's A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Saquon Barkley, a little bit of Dallas Goedert, Jalen Hurts. That's it, right? Some of these other teams, they spread the usage out, and we have 8, 9, 10 guys we could use on a single showdown slate. So when that happens, when Philly plays, there's this phenomenon where even if they're big favorites, we see balanced lineups or even lineups in favor of the underdog, 4 Cowboys, 5 Cowboys in a lineup. Probably not 5 Cowboys tonight, but 4 Cowboys. We see that be the average build. So if you're thinking that's the average build tonight and you don't really like any other strategies, but you have a lean one way or the other, one way to get different tonight in high-risk contests is building these heavy lineups, whether it's 4 or 5 Eagles in a lineup, 4 or 5 Cowboys in a lineup, because most of the field is building balance. That's one way to get different. You don't have to use as many low-owned players, and you automatically have a different type of lineup. So that's one way to get different tonight. Next, let's see, what else do we have here? Let's talk about pivots, right? We talked about some guys who are highly owned. There are some natural pivots in the same price range that instead of getting 25, 30% ownership, we can get 5% ownership. First one is Kevontae Turpin, right? We talked about him. We don't exactly know if he's going to have the same type of role. But Jalen Tolbert, who is $600 more expensive on DraftKings, Jalen Tolbert here is much more expensive on FanDuel, so not as much of a direct pivot as he is on DraftKings. But Tolbert's going to be the actual wide receiver 3, running more routes than Kevontae Turpin. And he's been productive when he's had the opportunity. Yes, he's the wide receiver 3 now behind Lamb and George Pickens. But he'll see some targets, and he probably has more upside than Kevontae Turpin. The difference here is the median versus ceiling outcome. I talked about this in our Discord last night, where Kevontae Turpin is more likely to score points tonight than Jalen Tolbert. But Tolbert probably has a higher ceiling of scoring 10-plus fantasy points. So really like Tolbert at super low ownership. I think right now our model has him at like 3 or 5% projected ownership. You'd love to see that. Next, we have Javonte Williams. Again, we think he's going to be the guy. He's likely to be the guy. But if we're wrong about the usage, or just God forbid he gets outscored on less touches, Jaden Blue, extremely low owned tonight because of his price tag. Miles Sanders, not really that highly owned because he's not great and likely the running back 3. But if we're wrong, Jaden Blue, Miles Sanders, under 10% ownership on DraftKings specifically, those are great pivots away from Javonte Williams. When we expect Javonte Williams to be 40% plus, 50% plus, maybe even higher in smaller field GPPs. We look at their prices on FanDuel. Let's clear this really quickly. And we see Javonte is 6,600. Jaden Blue, not a pivot here, right? He's an actual value at 2,400. Miles Sanders is the pivot here at 4K. He's kind of in that weird price range. No one's really going to play him. Not as much of a pivot as it is on DraftKings. And finally, we have the defenses. Eagles project really well as 8.5-point favorites, as they should. They're 7,800 on FanDuel. Cowboys, 5,400. They're going to be less than 10% owned. And they're going to be less than 10% owned on DraftKings as well at 3,600 compared to, 4,600 for the Eagles? Yeah, 4,600. again, I will say this often. If we're making multiple lineups, anytime a defense is sub 10% in a showdown contest, we have to consider using them in our lineups just because all it takes is one fluke play. One pick six, one kick return. All of a sudden, we're in business and we have a low owned play at a cheap price tag that has put up 10 plus fantasy points. So, Cowboys defense, another great pivot away from the Eagles tonight as well. Other option is, again, because I think the field is going to try to jam as many studs as possible, play Javante and the kickers and defenses. And I think we'll see decent ownership on some of these random ass dudes down here, like Kyle Granson, like who else is down here? Lepke, who our model does like, by the way, and he's not picking up any ownership. So Hunter Lepke just signed an extension. He's going to be their fullback, maybe get a touch or two. He's interesting at 400. Schoonmaker, number 2 tight end. So stars and scrubs, I think, by the field. So if you play some of these dead zone guys that aren't picking up any ownership, like Grant Calcaterra, likely the tight end 2. Like Will Shipley, likely the running back 2. Like Jahan Dotson, wide receiver 3. Actually going to run routes. Won't see that much ownership. I talked about Tolbert already. John Mechie, God forbid they have a plan for him and he gets some design touches. Right? So playing these dead zone guys instead of playing stars and scrubs is another way to construct your lineup differently, whether you're hand building or allowing that type of build in your high-risk contest, your mass multi-entries. Finally, let's talk about captains and MVPs. This is the easiest way to get different on these types of slates. Is it comfortable when Jalen Hurts and Saquon Barkley project for like 50% combined captain or MVP ownership? No. But Devontae Smith really sticks out in our model tonight. We talked about the Trayvon Diggs news. Maybe that opens up some more deep shots. But Devontae Smith ranks in the top 5 of our model on both sites. I think he's top 7 on FanDuel. But we have him at 2% projected ownership, 4% projected ownership, captain, MVP, respectively, FanDuel and DraftKings. $8,400 for a guy who can easily go for 100 plus and 2 touchdowns at that type of ownership. Devontae Smith, you see him as the cover boy of the video this week. One of the best high risk captain and MVP options tonight, and our model supports it as well. And you look at FanDuel, because the scoring system, yes, running backs and quarterbacks should be more popular. But judging by our early ownership, it doesn't look like the field is really putting much respect on wide receivers. And we've seen this phenomenon in the past too. And it looks like it hasn't changed despite the scoring system and the scoring system staying the same, but despite the entire salary and lineup construction changing this season. CeeDee Lamb, A.J. Brown, George Pickens, Devontae Smith, all less than 10% MVP on FanDuel. I think if I'm mass multi-entering, I'm playing the big contest. I'm just playing receivers, getting 25% each of those guys. Hope they can outscore Hurts or Barkley. And again, now with the new salary multiplier at MVP, they don't have to be the highest scorer necessarily. In the past on FanDuel, they had to be the highest scorer to be the optimal MVP. Not necessarily the case anymore. So opens up a couple more avenues for these receiver MVPs. Really, really like it. I will say, one final note here. Our model really likes the Eagles defense tonight, even at MVP. Less than 3% on DraftKings, 1% on FanDuel, 8.5 point favorites. Really tough. But again, with the salary multiplier, 7,800 on FanDuel, 4,600 on DraftKings, it allows you to fit in an extra stud. I really never recommend playing a defense at captain, but the model supports it tonight. And given the pricing, I think it actually makes a little sense. So don't be afraid to mix in Eagles defense as well at captain. And again, not only does the model support it, but the betting markets support it as well. All right, guys, that'll do it for this video. Appreciate you watching. As always, again, all the content at OccupyFantasy.com will be up this afternoon. Make sure you subscribe to the channel to get all the videos for every single slate. We're going to have 4 or 5 videos a week, so make sure you subscribe. Easiest way, support the channel. Give a thumbs up. Let's drop a water emoji in the comments if you support the water break section. I know you do. But again, any questions you have, comment below. I or someone on the team will be monitoring the YouTube channel. Every single day we have a slate, and we will gladly answer any questions you have. Don't give us your lineup and say, what do you think about this lineup? We can't do that for everybody. But you have specific player questions, lineup construction tips, anything you have, drop a comment, and we will happily answer it for you. Other way is to join our Discord server. Link is in the description below. OccupyFantasy.com, all the stuff we talked about, memberships as low as $7 per week. We would love to have you. Come be a part of the community. Sweat out every single showdown and main slate NFL game with us this 2025 season. So for Brian, I'm Occupy. Nope. For Occupy, I'm Brian. Thanks for listening. Good luck and enjoy the season opener tonight.